Hey, everybody. Welcome into a new edition of the Patriots Beat podcast. Evan Lazar alongside me, as always, 98.5's Alex Barth. And Alex, a juicy day for the Patriots down in Foxborough this Wednesday.
Yes.
Joint practices with the New York Giants. Started the day off with a bang by trading Sony Michel to the Los Angeles Rams. And we're going to get to the Sony trade at some point as well. But we got to start with is unquestionably the story of the day. Trumps a trade of a former first-round pick, Mack Jones. If there was going to be a day where we look back in a couple of weeks and say, when was the day that the tide turned? When was the day that Mack started to pass Cam a little bit on the depth chart and made this thing official? It was Wednesday. It was today against the New York Giants. 21-26 is what I had him as against the Giants starting defense in 11-on-11s. His best practice so far as a Patriot, by far, I would say. It had a mix of everything from downfield throws to efficient quick game passing to anticipatory throws over the middle to command at the line of scrimmage. And I think that might be the biggest telltale sign out of anything is that answer that Josh McDaniels gave in his Sunday press conference when he said there were little to very few pre-snap errors and how important setting the table is for this offense. And then today after practice, Kendrick Bourne said it was great to see Mack make us a team out there, right? And get everybody lined up and on the same page before the ball is snapped and make the offense a cohesive unit. So what we're hearing from the coaches, from the players around Mack Jones, what we're seeing with our eyes are all really positive strides for the Patriots rookie. And like I said, if there was going to be a day, today was the day.
Great day to have a day, and Mack Jones had a day. I made the joke yesterday, perhaps the biggest single training camp practice in terms of anticipation in Patriots history, and Mack Jones lived up to the moment. Absolutely. This was his best day as a Patriot. He was in control. He was in command. He was accurate. He was on time. Everything you could ask for. He did it all today. And I'll tell you this, too, because, we go out and we watch that, and it's like, all right, he looked good. There's not a ton of context, right? So I just had Doug Kyde on my 98.5, the Sports Hub show, 98.5sportshub.com Patriots podcast. And Doug now is a national reporter, used to be at Ness, and he now works for PFF. He travels the country. So he was in San Francisco recently. So he saw another very hyped rookie quarterback in Trey Lance. He told me emphatically, Mack Jones looked better than Trey Lance did. Mack Jones today, and granted, he hasn't seen every practice for both guys, but this was a, there's still some people complaining, why was Mack Jones a first-round pick? Today answered that question. If there was any doubt left, I didn't have any doubt since October. If there's any doubt left, today was the day. Mack Jones, why Mack Jones was a first-round pick, why people valued him as highly as they did because of the NFL readiness you saw today. He looked like an NFL quarterback. And by the way, for comparison, there was another maybe NFL quarterback on the other side, and Daniel Jones, a guy who we're told is an NFL quarterback. That guy sucked compared to Mack Jones. He was awful. He was bad. He threw one right to Kyle Duggar. So there is that element of comparison too. Here's a guy who's expected to start 17 games this year. Mack Jones was much better than him. So you can take that for what it's worth too.
It's a great day to have a day was a good way of putting it, right? And that's exactly what Mack Jones did, is seizing this moment and this opportunity, this window of reps. Going out there today in all competitive drills, you include the 7-on-7 periods as well. He threw 55 passes today, Alex. That's a high volume number of reps. Right. So what you want to see is him improve it every single day, him get better at the little things every single day. And you also want to just give him sheer volume because that's how he is going to get better. And they've been able to do that with Cam Newton out. And I don't know if you don't judge a quarterback competition on one day, right? You don't go out there and say Mack played great on Wednesday, August 25th. And he should be the starting quarterback because he looked great in one practice against the Giants. But this has been a slow buildup. And at this point, it feels like, from watching it unfold in front of our eyes and also from what I'm hearing internally, that Mack Jones starting in week 1 is certainly on the table. And this Cam Newton COVID situation, I think maybe pushed the needle a little bit more towards Mack Jones' side. It wasn't a one-off situation where that was a deciding factor, right? But it definitely is a factor that Cam basically refuses to get vaccinated from everything that I have heard about the situation. So you put that on top of the fact that Mack is playing terrifically well, had a magnificent day out there today, and a lot of things, the tide is turning. The tide is turning. And whether it's week 1 or it's week 5, like we've said all summer long, it might not be right away. It might not be against Miami, September 12th, week 1, but it might come eventually. And now it's starting to feel like it might come even sooner than both of us predicted.
Well, I mean, I'll say this too. And I've said this since the beginning, right? That Mack Jones can't win the job. Cam Newton has to lose it.
Right.
They won't go away from Cam unless he gives them a reason. I think Bill Belichick wanted to give it another year with Cam. I think that they value that experience. They value having a guy who's played in the NFL. I think in their perfect world, Cam Newton gives them at least 2 months, and then you reevaluate. Cam would have to lose the job. Now, when I said that, I meant turnovers. I meant he's turning the ball over left and right. Maybe he's taking a bunch of bad penalties at the line, formational stuff, delay of games. Like, that's how I pictured him losing the job. I didn't think it was going to be like this, but this is what we are witnessing before our eyes. Cam Newton is losing the job because of his vaccination status. And again, it's up to him whether he wants to get vaccinated or not. But, people talk about, freedom of choice. America is about freedom of choice. It absolutely is. There's a difference between freedom of choice and freedom of consequence. Cam Newton is absolutely free to not get vaccinated if he does not want to. But that choice comes with the consequence. And right now, the consequence is the guy who's breathing down his neck just had the best performance of his short career, and they have to make a decision very soon. And the information they have on the table right now is Mack Jones is surging. So this is what Cam Newton. I'm not saying Mack's not winning the job. He's playing well, but Cam Newton is losing it as much as Mack Jones is winning it right now because Newton is not on the field.
Right. Well, that's what the vaccination status to me, I don't care either way if Cam wants to get vaccinated.
We don't get here. We're not having this conversation if Cam is vaccinated.
Correct.
Mack doesn't have an opportunity to have the performance he has today if Cam Newton is vaccinated.
Correct. That's what it is. Cam not being vaccinated, personal choice, do what you want with your own body, but him not getting vaccinated presented this opportunity to Mack Jones, and Mack Jones, to his credit, just kicked down the door. He didn't just open the door a little bit. He just went full-fledged and knocked it down, right? And that's different. And I think that that's the separation here with the vaccination thing is you have to look at it as a window of opportunity and not necessarily an indictment on the decision itself. And I also want to discuss just the individual throws and the things that we saw out there from Mack as well, and not so much all the big picture stuff. So the couple of throws that specifically stood out, the first one being the back shoulder to James White down the right sideline. And in that back shoulder throw, the linebacker, James White said after practice, held him up a little bit at the line of scrimmage, stayed over the top of his route, and somebody on the sideline yelled ball to James White, and White snapped his head around and was able to catch the pass. Basically a throw that caught him, more or less, right? Because he didn't really see it coming and turned at the last second and was able to catch it.
He made a good late adjustment. Let's not act like the ball just appeared in his hands, glitched into his hands, right?
Sure. So that's fair. It was a great late adjustment by James White. And on that particular play, just a great understanding of where the coverage is and knowing, okay, this is the only place that I can throw this ball where it's going to be complete to James White. He then came back later in practice. Jacoby Myers ran a deep corner route, stemmed it at the post safety, cut it off towards the pylon, and there was a corner underneath it, and the safety trying to range over the top on it, and Mack just dropped it in a dime, right? He just dropped it right in the bucket between the two defenders, and Jacoby went up and made a nice catch on that one as well. So those were the two downfield throws that really stood out. I also mentioned some throws on in cuts or dig routes to Jacoby Myers, one to Kendrick Bourne. Johnny Smith got a little digger crosser, whatever you want to call it, over the middle of the field as well. There was efficient quick game passing underneath the defense to the backs to Gunnar Olszewski a few times, caught a couple passes underneath the defense. So the full repertoire today, the 3-level repertoire of accuracy, decision-making, decisiveness, all those types of things from Mack. What was the most impressive detailed aspect of the game today from Mack?
Yeah, at first, I think the command, I keep going back to this. I've gone back to it since the beginning. The command that he has when he's under center, it's a night and day from where he was on day one. His voice is different when he calls the cadence out. We talked about this yesterday. So that, big picture, that growth continues to impress me. Just today, it was the short stuff, and he had some nice deep passes. The throw to Jacoby Myers in the back corner of the end zone, at the end of practice was probably his best throw of the day, but you make one or two of those throws a game, and you can't necessarily. Okay, Patrick Mahomes aside, you can't necessarily win sustainably on those throws, right? You need to be a very special team. This isn't the Big 12. You're not doing that sustainably. It was, just the timing and the accuracy of what he did underneath. You talked about the 3 levels, but the way he operated underneath, I thought Kendrick Bourne said something interesting today. Somebody asked him about his level of trust with Mack Jones and how they trust each other. And he said, you see it. I run a ton of in cuts. That's trust. And it is. Not necessarily in this practice setting, but Mack Jones has to know he's going to make the catch, because if that ball's tipped on an in cut over the middle short, it's probably intercepted. And Bourne has to trust him that he's not leading him into a defender or throwing a hospital ball. And that trust is there. And that's not, people think the short stuff's easy. It's not in traffic. And the short stuff is what makes the Patriots offense go. You're not going to have those opportunities to throw the ball 35 yards into the corner to Jacoby Myers if you can't hit what's underneath to set it up. And that's what, he's done it, but today was the best example. Just boom, 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 underneath, throw after throw after throw. So you ask me what was most impressive from him today, I would say that.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
Let me rephrase that. Again, that one throw to the back corner was the most impressive, but what was my takeaway in terms of what was the most relevant to him being the week 1 starter? That was my, I feel like it's more important to talk about what's relevant instead of what was impressive. That underneath stuff, I feel like is super relevant, and he was good there. And I think that's important. I think that should be the big takeaway. If you want to talk about, it's very easy to come away and say, Mack Jones had a great day, to say any player had a great day. You could take 10 different quarterbacks. They could all have 10 good days, all doing very different things. It's not just that Mack Jones had a good day. It's the kind of day he had that made it good.
I agree with you 100% about the cadences at the line of scrimmage and the confidence at the line of scrimmage when he goes up there, and the ability to direct traffic at the line of scrimmage has been very impressive. And I keep coming back to that McDaniels quote of very few pre-snap errors, right? And a quarterback that already in his rookie season, just a couple of weeks into training camp, is setting the table for the rest of the offense. And McDaniels pointed out that because he's able to set the table at a high level, the offense is allowed to play fast, right? And when they play fast, they're not only a bigger threat to the defense, but they're also more in rhythm, and they can string plays together and positive plays together and move the football. So having the offensive coordinator come out and say that there were very few pre-snap errors about a rookie quarterback is impressive. And then we can go out there and see it every single day in practice as well, that he's able to set the table. And there was one last throw I wanted to point out. It was at the very beginning of practice. Jacoby Myers ran an in-cut dig route, probably about 12 yards down the field, and cut inside. And there was a post safety over the top of the route that was screaming down when he saw Myers cut across the field. And he was going to lay Jacoby Myers out if Mack Jones put that ball in front of Myers. And so what he did was he throws it low into the ground and has Jacoby slide down and catch it and scoop it off the ground. I'm not comparing Mack Jones to Tom Brady. I am just saying that we saw Brady protect his receivers in the same exact way a million times over the 20 years that he was here. And I consistently see Mack, whether it's on tape against Washington and Philadelphia or in these practices, understand how to protect his wideouts from oncoming hits, right? And save them from those hospital balls. And that's next level quarterbacking. That's smart. That's intelligent quarterback play. And that's a big part of all of this as well, I think, with Mack Jones that we see. So a great day for Mack. You can't take that away from him. He was fantastic. I think, again, if there was a day that we were going to sit here and say, this is when the tide turned. This is when it changed, the position that Bill Belichick has stood on since the draft as Cam is his starting quarterback. If that changes, then the day was today to point to. Now, what do we expect out of practice tomorrow from the quarterbacks? I think this is going to be fascinating because Cam is supposed to be back at practice tomorrow for the Patriots on Thursday for the second day of joint practices. Mack over the last 3 days has thrown a ridiculous amount of throws, right? I think somewhere around 150 to 200 competitive reps for Mack Jones over the last 3 days. That's a lot of reps and a lot of throws to put on the arm. So the question is, does Cam come back and dominate the reps and go right back to QB1 status like nothing ever happened? Or has the needle moved enough? Is this a split share tomorrow? How far has the needle moved that when Cam comes back tomorrow, is he still the clear-cut quarterback one?
Man, we never did those needles we had week one. We had
I know.
Set up. We
got lost in it.
You know how so. I talked to Doug about this, and he brought up a good point. Can Mack take another 50 reps tomorrow? Like you said, he's thrown a ton. I mean, we don't really think about it because quarterbacks, you throw maybe 30 balls once every 7 days. This is a different setting, though. Is it like a pitcher where you can only throw so many times before you risk hurting your arm? You don't want to wear Mack out. And that's why I thought maybe they'd bring in another quarterback just for the week when the Cam news came out. But at the same time, these reps are valuable. You got to give them to Mack. So they go a number of different ways tomorrow. I think they could go, if they go all Cam, you can read that a number of different ways. You can read that as he's still the starter. Yesterday didn't mean as much as we thought it did. And Bill's giving Cam a chance to make up for lost ground. You can look at it as, okay, Mack got all the reps yesterday. Cam gets all the reps today. This way they still split 50-50. Or you could look at it as Mack's arm is sore. He threw too much over the last 3 days, and they need to give him a rest. I think the real telling thing is if Mack still throws even comparable reps to Cam Newton tomorrow, I think that tells us a lot about where he's at. And then the other possibility is, does the order change?
Right.
Mack Jones is the more prepared quarterback for the week right now. That's definitive. You can't tell me that's not true. Mack Jones has practiced for 3 days in preparation for the Giants, as Bill will say. He still talks about prep when it comes to preseason games. Mack Jones has had 3 days of preparation. Cam Newton has had none, at least not on the field. Mack Jones might take the first reps. Mack Jones might take the starter reps with Cam Newton taking reps behind him. And that tells us that this is really real. That would tell us that this is really real. In week one, it is a dead even race sprint to the finish.
Right.
So I think tomorrow, and then there's the possibility Cam doesn't practice tomorrow.
There is.
We don't know exactly what that timeline is. And if Cam doesn't practice tomorrow, then okay, now it's, well, does he play Sunday? If he doesn't play Sunday and Mack Jones goes out and balls out in a game after this week of practice, again, then you really start looking at week one. So there's a number of, where's that needle at right now? Obviously, it took a big jump towards Mack Jones today. But we don't, again, Mack is only half the equation because, again, it is still Cam Newton's job to lose. I believe that. It's not Mack's to win. It's Cam's to lose. So we don't fully know the ramifications of today. And I know this is a cop-out. You asked me what today means, and I'm giving you the runaround. We don't fully know the ramifications of today's practice until we see what happens with Cam Newton tomorrow and on Sunday.
I also think what's going to be interesting tomorrow, assuming that Cam Newton does practice, is he just as good against the Giants defense as Mack Jones was? And what I mean by that is there were times in today's practice, especially early in the practice, where I kind of felt like the Giants defense was lousy. The Giants defense wasn't putting up much of resistance.
You're the only person who's saying that. The Giants,
no, I'm not. The other people are saying that the Giants defense played well last year. I don't care about last year. I'm telling you what I saw out there today, right? There's a difference. If people on Twitter are telling me, oh, well, the Giants defense ranked this and that in 2020, well, I'm watching them right in front of my eyes, and I didn't really think that they were super competitive out there today for long stretches, especially early on in the practice. So maybe the Giants come out tomorrow and they play better than they did before, right? Or maybe the Giants come out tomorrow and Cam Newton carves them up just like Mack Jones did. And then we might want to throw away these joint practices to a degree and say the Giants defense just wasn't up to snuff. They just weren't up to the challenge. And that probably is good news for the Patriots offense. That probably means this Patriots offense, which has been great in the preseason, by the way, maybe this Patriots offense is legitimate, right? Who knows? We still have a lot of unknowns there.
They have quality players in the secondary. This wasn't facing, this wasn't going up against, no
I'm
offense,
not saying that
D'Angelo
they're the
Ross
worst
and
defense in the NFL. There were times, and this is also why when I tweeted out Mack's passing stats, I focused just on the 11-on-11s because the 7-on-7s especially were really soft. They're playing
that
soft
I would agree with.
They were the compete level there for the Giants in 7-on-7 was lackluster. I thought as practice went on, and especially late in practice, they turned it on a little bit defensively and seemed like they were testing and kind of challenging the Patriots offense a little bit more. But when you watch the Patriots defense on one field and then you watch this Giants defense on another field, there's a clear line of demarcation there between the two, right? The Patriots defense clearly looks a lot better than the Giants defense. So maybe the Giants defense is going to be like they were last year, 12th in total yards or total defense or whatever that stat was that was thrown at me. That's a middling defense, right? There's the separation between 10 and 20 is a couple of yards per game. So that's a middling defense. I'm not taking anything away from what Mack Jones did today. I just want to see do it again tomorrow. And I also want to see
perfectly reasonable.
I also want to see if Cam Newton can do the same exact thing as well, because then maybe the Giants defense just isn't. They might be good this year. They might get there this year, but maybe the Giants defense right now is not very good. And that's going to be, a telltale sign to me. He has two more instances tomorrow in joint practices and Sunday against the Giants in the preseason finale. If he plays good against their defense on both of those days and all 3 days go to Mack Jones or the Patriots offense in general, then I will say, good. That's a definitive statement. Right now, it's just one practice.
Sure. I mean, I guess I would say to that, the Giants have players on the defensive side of the ball we know are talented. I'm not. Did they have the best day? No. I think some of what Mack did, and frankly, some of what Mack did that was impressive is, I don't want to say totally regardless of the defense, but it sort of is. Some of that timing stuff, right? To throw to James White, to throw in the back corner Jacoby Myers. Maybe another defensive player covers it better, but at the end of the day, you can't ask Mack to make those reads and put that ball any better than he did and place that ball any better than he did.
Right.
So does it totally matter who's covering on that play? Maybe a little bit, but I don't think the defense was the entire story of Mack Jones dominating.
No, it wasn't. I just think it's important context, especially to mention that early on streak, Mack Jones went on a run between 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s where he completed 16 consecutive passes, which is impressive no matter who you're going up against. If you're going up against the NFL guys, right? That's an extremely impressive streak. But some of that, I especially in the 7-on-7s, I kind of throw those reps out in a way because the Giants, like I said, were really
throw out the 7-on-7s. Those are weird.
Yeah.
But
okay.
The 11s, he was good, and it was beyond just the defense he was facing.
Right. Yes, I agree with that as well. All right, let's move on to Sony Michel, the trade to the Los Angeles Rams this morning. There are two conversations to be had here. One, just about the Sony pick in general and going back to the 2018 draft and looking at that use of an asset. And two is assessing what this means moving forward for the Patriots. I'm far more interested in number two. I know number one is the juicy, the 2 to 6 show is talking about it plenty today, Alex. I know that's a juicy topic of did the Patriots make the right pick in 2018 by drafting Sony, by passing on Lamar Jackson, by passing on Nick Chubb. But wherever you want to take this, Alex, it doesn't matter to me. But those are the two talking points here, I feel like.
So, which one do you want to tackle?
I know we need to discuss the first one. So let's tackle that one first. It just drives me crazy because I don't really care what happened 4 years ago. right? I just don't care. But ultimately, was the Sony pick the best use of the 31st overall pick in a draft? The answer is no. But was Sony Michel the worst 31st overall pick in the NFL draft? Absolutely not, right? There are guys that get drafted 31st overall all the time that never play a snap in the league, let alone lead a team in rushing on a Super Bowl winner, right? So there's some nuance there. It was a bad pick because the inherently running backs in the first round are bad value. They're bad judgment. They're bad value. Most of those guys don't get second contracts, and the guys that do get second contracts don't usually play up to the second contract, right? The team usually overpays for them. So just inherently using a first round pick on a running back, not the best thing.
Yeah. So this is kind of how I've always explained it to people. The Sony Michel pick wasn't a great pick, but that's completely independent of Sony. It is not related to Sony Michel himself. Drafting a running back in the first round is just not a good investment. If they took Nick Chubb, as good as Nick Chubb is, I would still say it's at the time not a great pick. People want to bring up Lamar Jackson. Obviously, he won an MVP. I feel like a ton of quarterback outcomes has to do with the situation they land in, right? And I think getting to what's the offense coordinator? Or am I blanking? In Baltimore,
Greg Roman.
I think getting to work with, I don't know that Lamar Jackson wins an MVP in New England, right? I think, getting to work with Greg Roman, getting to work in that system, it was just the perfect fit. It's not a horrible fit in New England, but he's a better fit in Baltimore. That's just the reality of it. The name that's interesting to me, and this isn't my take, Jim Murray brought this up when they were talking about it on Falcon and Maz. Darius Leonard went 5 picks later. And boy, would that guy be a heck of a Patriot, right? So that's revisionist.
The revisionist history you can do with every pick, right? We just talked about this yesterday when the Patriots signed Kahale Warring or claimed him off of waivers, and all the Texans fans are saying, Damian Harris went the next pick. We could have had Damian Harris instead of Kahale Warring, which obviously right now we'd rather do. So all 32 teams in the NFL can play the revisionist history game. If you go back and look at Patrick Mahomes' draft, or Deshaun Watson in that draft, or Josh Allen even with the Buffalo Bills, there's a lot of teams that wish they made a different pick, right? I go ask people in Miami if they would rather have Tua or Justin Herbert. I think they'd probably rather have Herbert at this point.
Right.
So there's so many conversations that you can have in that respect. But what this is a lesson of, Damian Harris was drafted a year after Sony Michel in 2019 in the 3rd round, and he's the better player. So what this is a message of is first round value on running backs is poor. Now, the question is, maybe not even a question, the point in Sony's corner is that he came in as a rookie and contributed immediately to a Super Bowl team that needed a lead down back, right? They needed an early down back, a lead roll back, and he was able to play that role instantly in year 1. And maybe like Damian Harris, who has basically redshirted for his whole rookie year, maybe you don't get that out of a 3rd or a 4th round pick.
Yeah, exactly. But I still... It's more about the future. If you draft a guy in the 1st round, you should be looking beyond the rookie contract. And it's hard to look beyond the rookie contract with running back. So that's the reality of it. But, all that, can we now go to this, the trade itself?
Yeah, no, just one last thing. The big stat, I think, for all these people that want to discuss the Patriots' recent draft record, the last first-round pick that the Patriots have had that had landed a second contract with the team was Dante Hightower in 2012. Really? It's been almost a decade since the Patriots have handed out a second contract to a first-round pick. Isaiah Wynn can buck that, right?
So,
potentially.
And to be fair, there's 3 or 4 years in there where they didn't have a first-round pick. Although I guess it'd be a lot easier to say that they gave a second contract to Brandon Cooks after trading a first-round pick for him, as I still believe they should have done. But there are 3 or 4 years in there where they don't have a first-round pick, for whatever it's worth.
So fair enough.
But it's an interesting stat. It's a good stat.
Let's talk about what it means moving forward, because that's just more as important than lamenting the Sony Michel pick back in 2018. When we got out of practice today, what we saw out of practice today, I should say, was clearly Rhamondre Stevenson has earned a lot of trust with the coaching staff, and Damian Harris led off all the drills in the running game portions of practice, 11-on-11 competitive running sessions, and then he was followed immediately by Rhamondre Stevenson. So I know JJ
Well,
Taylor has
hang on. Before we get into this, sorry, I thought you were somewhere else. You mind if I give a comment on the trade itself?
Sure.
I don't know. So I actually thought, given the situation they were in, and we talked about it wasn't the best pick potentially, but given the situation they were in, I actually think they made the most out of it. I actually think they did a good job because and whether or not they should have traded Sony Michel, I go back and forth on that because I don't think you can ever have enough running back depth, but at the same time, 6 running backs is a lot.
Right.
But if you're going to trade somebody, Sony's in the last year of his deal. I think if he
plays, it was the right guy to be traded for sure.
He was of those 6, he's the most logical guy to move. If you have to move somebody, it was him or nobody. If you want to debate, they shouldn't have traded a running back. I'll listen to that. None of the other running backs made sense to trade or cut. But so if you let Sony play out his deal, right? And I wrote about this, by the way, this morning, 985thesportshub.com, the timing of it all. If you let Sony play out his deal, you get probably a 6th, maybe a 5th round comp pick in 2023. By making this move, right now it's a 5th and 6th, and it seems pretty solid. It's going to become a 4th round pick in 2022. So not only do you get a better pick overall than what you get if you just let the comp pick formula play its course, you also move that pick up a year. You move that pick, and this is what I talked about when I said maybe they should explore trading N'Keal Harry. You move that pick up from 2023 to 2022, and what that does, Evan, we've talked about this since April. This year's draft, because of players staying due to COVID, is going to be historically deep. It's not like it's this monumentally top-heavy, talented draft. There's some players I like. What's his name? Babineau in Oregon. Anyway, but a 4th round pick in 2022, we heard this during the draft, teams were valuing that like a 2nd or 3rd round pick any other year. Right. So granted, this is the back end of the 4th round. Because it's a comp pick, no matter how the Rams finish, it's the back end of the 4th round. But you get a better pick than you would have gotten from the comp pick formula, and you move that pick up to a year that it's very desirable to have picks. So, I know this is going to sound weird because he was a 1st round pick 4 years ago, whatever it is. I actually think they traded Sony Michel for more than he's worth now.
Oh, they got great value.
Right.
They got great value.
Worth more than he was when they took him. And his value ultimately from draft day to now went down. But his value where it stands right now, they traded him for more than he's worth.
They got great value on the trade. I was actually shocked that the Rams gave up as much as they did for Sony Michel because I was dead wrong about this one. I didn't really see him as a scheme fit in Los Angeles, but they're just so desperate for running back.
It doesn't matter.
They literally just need somebody, and the Patriots roped them into this trade. So in that respect, look, I'm not going to let's not do a whole parade for the fact that they got a 4th round pick back for a former 1st round pick, but at least they did make good on the return a little bit in this trade in a vacuum. So that I thought was great element of this. He was clearly the guy to trade, as you mentioned, in the last year of his contract, no 5th year option. So it was definitely the right guy to trade, and they got at least something for him. Let's talk about what it means for the backfield moving forward. I know that there's a huge fan club for JJ Taylor. A lot of Patriots fans love them some JJ Taylor, and for good reason. But the guy that this definitely impacts more in the backfield, from Taylor's perspective, it impacts him from a numbers perspective, right? Now they don't have 6 running backs. They don't have a log jam there anymore where he can't make the team just because there's a sheer too many guys, right? But from a role perspective, Rhamondre Stevenson is the guy that made Sony Michel expendable. Damien Harris is the lead back. He's been the lead back all summer long. Today out at practice, as I mentioned earlier, Rhamondre Stevenson got all of the 2nd reps. Damien Harris went first. Rhamondre Stevenson, went 2nd. Through 2 preseason games, Rhamondre Stevenson leads all ball carriers in the entire NFL in yards after contact with 140. This is a legitimate player that the Patriots are, I think this definitely has the writing on the wall of that we are comfortable with putting Rhamondre Stevenson in a game this year already. And there's one play at practice that really stood out. We can talk about it in a second after you give your take on this, that I think solidified the fact that they would be comfortable with putting Rhamondre out there.
Yeah, I think that I don't think that this deal happens without the emergence of Rhamondre Stevenson and without him playing as well as he has. Ivan Fear said early in camp he had a lot to work on. He failed his conditioning test. We know that. He failed his conditioning test when he came in. So it would make sense that their plan from the beginning was to redshirt him, and it seems like even with that fumble against Philly, which I'll eat some crow on that, I thought that was the last time we were going to see him until 2022.
I tweeted it out. I said,
yeah, I'm not alone in
Rhamondre
that.
Stevenson. I was dead wrong about this whole situation. I'll own it.
Right. Me too. Me too. And I look, I like the player. I always thought he was going to be a good player. I just thought their history of running backs, we'd have to wait to see him. But he's played their way into the fact that the way things stack up right now, unless there's a huge role coming for Brandon Bolden that we're not expecting, and Bolden was back today for the first time in a little over a week. He did have a red non-contact jersey, but where they are right now, if Damien Harris gets hurt, and Harris has had some injury troubles, if Harris gets hurt, Rhamondre Stevenson's your starting early down running back. Right. He's a 20 to 25 carry a game guy if something happens to Damien Harris. He's still probably 10 to 15 carries a game, which is a lot for your typical Patriots rookie running back. So a ton of credit to Rhamondre Stevenson for him coming as far as he's come and
a short period of time.
Right, in a very short period of time. Putting in the, I'm sure he'd credit the offensive line. So I'll say too, obviously it's got to be easy running behind that great offensive line, but credit to Rhamondre Stevenson for coming as far as he's come here in a short period of time. And he's done a great job. And, Patriots fans should be very excited about this kid. I said it at the draft. And again, I said they should be very excited in 2022. I'll scratch that last part off. I think it's time. I don't know that he's supplanting Damien Harris. I think Harris's starting role is safe for, the first month or so of the season at least, but yeah, you can be excited about Rhamondre Stevenson. That's absolutely fair.
So the play in practice that I wanted to point out, because there's an exchange with Ivan Fears on Sunday when the assistant coaches spoke, and he got a lot of questions about why can't these rookies get on the field at your position, right? Why are rookie running backs with the Patriots treated the way that they are treated in terms of playing time? And he pointed to the fact that all these guys that they've drafted, from Sony to Damien Harris, now to Rhamondre Stevenson, even signing J.J. Taylor as an undrafted free agent, all of these guys can carry the football. All of them are good athletes. All of them can run the ball. That has never been a question. The problem is the other details of the game: route running, pass protection, all the other intricacies that go in to playing running back for the Patriots. And I would also throw out there potentially contributing on special teams as well in some sort of a role, because a lot of these guys in the backfield are special teams player too. So he talked about the whole game, the whole picture, not being able to just be a great ball carrier, but being able to do everything. And there was a play in practice today during 11-on-11s where Rhamondre Stevenson was in the backfield, and the Giants sent a blitz at Mack Jones, and Rhamondre Stevenson met the linebacker right in the middle of the offensive line and stood him up in the hole and prevented him from getting to Mack Jones. And those types of blitz pickups and that skill in pass protection, those are the little things that Ivan Fears is talking about. Well, if he can make that play, if he can go back on backer and hold up in pass protection consistently, then he's going to get on the field. If he can't do that, then he's not. And they favor being able to pick up a blitzing linebacker a whole lot more than catching a ball out of the backfield. We saw that with Sony Michel, right? You don't necessarily need to be James White coming out of the backfield to play as a rookie with the Patriots, but you have to be able to pick up a linebacker and blitz pickup. And Rhamondre Stevenson proved today, at least on one rep, that he was able to do that. And that to me stood out as a play where I said that's why they felt comfortable trading Sony Michel to LA this morning, is because they feel like Rhamondre Stevenson is far enough along in blitz pickup and in the passing game to do more than just carry the football.
Boomer Sooner.
Boomer Sooner.
Boomer Sooner. There you go. How'd Ronnie Perkins look today?
Ronnie, the whole
I didn't see a ton of him today.
The whole defense is where I wanted to go next, but Boomer Sooner is absolutely right. And he was great in blitz pickup Rhamondre Stevenson in college too. That was one thing that definitely stood out on his college tape consistently, was his ability to pick up blitzes. Let's move over to the defense side of the ball. You mentioned in the beginning of the show, Alex, that the best Jones on the field today by far was McCorkle, and Daniel Jones looked like a rookie.
Daniel Jones.
You would have thought it was it. You would have thought Daniel Jones was the rookie and Mack was the 3-year vet, right? I mean, that's the way it looked.
Well, Daniel Jones was the 4th best quarterback on the field today. I would say
Mack Jones. Mike Lennon was better?
I legitimately thought Mike Glennon was better. And let's not forget Jacoby Myers used to be a quarterback, and he made a great catch. Brian Hoyer had no meaningful reps. I actually might put him ahead of Daniel Jones because I think nothing is probably better than what Daniel Jones did. So he might have been the 5th best quarterback on the field today. Good luck with that, Giants.
So I don't want the D to fly under the radar. Peabody and Matt, I'm assuming. I don't want them to fly under the radar because they're having a great summer. Arguably a better summer than the offense, but there's just so much juicy topics to talk about on the offense that it gets overshadowed. The couple of things that stood out to me today about the Patriots defense that dominated the Giants offense and made Daniel Jones look like a pumpkin was, first of all, it's difficult to watch live and see exactly what they're doing on the back end on every single play without being able to go watch the tape back and really study it and focus in on the rotations and the types of coverages. But whatever they were doing, Daniel Jones did not complete a deep pass all practice long and didn't even try, really. He came off the deep throws. He came off those deep routes, checked it down. He scrambled a bunch in this game, in this practice out there today as well on Wednesday. There was a whole lot of check down scramble from Daniel Jones because the stuff down the field was either confusing him or wasn't open. The other thing that really stood out from the defense was how many unblocked or free runners there were to the quarterback today. It felt like the Patriots had Daniel Jones and the Giants starting offensive line in a blender. They had no idea where guys were coming from, whether it was Dante Hightower over here.
The Hightower one. You were freaking out about that when it happened in practice.
Because it was crazy. The one thing that you do when you're a center and you're a quarterback and you come to the line of scrimmage, you call out how many down players there are on the line of scrimmage, right? You'll hear David Andrews do it all the time. 3 down, 4 down. It's 5, or maybe not 5. 3 down, 4 down, right? And that is exactly what you do every single time you come to the line of scrimmage, first and foremost. And they had Dante Hightower standing up right over the left tackle. It wasn't like Dante Hightower was doing some amoeba stuff or lining up off the ball and blitzed and came out of nowhere. He was lining up over the left tackle and nobody blocked him. It was incredible. There was 4 or 5 instances where that happened. Hightower I had down for 2 of those. Kyle Van Noy had a couple of them where nobody blocked them because the Patriots were doing all sorts of different things up front and the Giants just couldn't get a beat on it. And in Bill Belichick's defenses, especially in the front 7, are at their absolute best when they can be that confusing, right? When they can really spin the dial and they can get after you with scheme as well as good individual pass rushers. Today, we saw that come to fruition. Daniel Jones's mind was in an absolute blender for 2.5 hours today.
He wasn't the first New York quarterback to see ghosts against the Patriots, I think is what you're trying to say.
Exactly.
And he won't be the last. Yeah, no, he struggled today, and it's not take anything away from the Patriots defense. The Kyle Duggar interception again, right between the numbers. Like targeted.
Right.
Kyle Duggar. And I don't know, maybe the Giants offense wears white when they just practiced against each other and he just, muscle memory. And look, even though it was right to Duggar, it's not to take anything away from Duggar. He read the play. He got to the right spot at the right time. He knew where the read was. Daniel Jones was staring down his receiver and Kyle Duggar figured it out. Just because it was an easy interception doesn't mean getting there was guaranteed. So, and that's honestly, to me, been Kyle Duggar's best trait since day one. He just kind of knows where he needs to be and how to get there. I think he's got a very good knack for that. And very instinctive player. And Bill's talked about that and coaches talked about that. So, and that's a perfect example. He got exactly where he needed to be. He got there so well, even the quarterback didn't realize that he had gotten there. And again, right there, right in the sweet spot, right between the numbers. Who else? Somebody else almost had a pick and just missed it. It might've been Devin. I forget. They should have had another one.
JC Jackson had a pass breakup. There was one other pass breakup.
It was early. It was right after the Duggar one. But it's very good day for the defense. Very good day for the defense.
That seeing ghost Sam Darnold clip, you're 100% right. That was exactly what it felt like for Daniel Jones and the Giants offensive line. And that's what I love so much about a good coached up Bill Belichick defense with veteran players that know how to run the system, right? Because last year they got away from a lot of that amoeba fronts, from the different pressure looks, because they just didn't have the experience to run all that kind of stuff. Now they get Dante Hightower back. Kyle Van Noy's been in the system obviously once before. Matt Judon's a veteran player that understands how to do things that they're going to ask him to do. Josh Uche, who wasn't out there today, is in his second year with the Patriots, so he has a better understanding of what they're asking from him. Chase Winovich has been in the system, and they just went out there today, and this guy's going to drop, this guy's going to rush, this guy's going to come from over here, this guy's going to come from over there, and the Giants just had no idea, and that was great. And I think that that's exactly what you want to see if you're a Patriot fan from this defense this year, is spin the dial again, confuse them. Run those different types of schemes, run those different types of pressure looks, be multiple in the front seven. That's when Bill Belichick is back at his best. And I think he's got the tools, he's got the players, he's got everybody in line to be able to do that again this year.
Yeah, no, I think this defense is going to be in much better shape this year. I think kind of what you mentioned, the experience, right? Donta Hightower is such a big part of that. And I just think having him back alone, and then you add in some of these other guys. Also, Matt Judon's a beast, so that's fun. And that'll help. Let's
go back over to the offense just to wrap this up. We got
two more guys I want to talk about on offense.
Okay, all right. Hopefully this is one of them. We got to give some props and some respect again on the show to Jacoby Myers.
Yes, that was one.
He's by far the Patriots' best receiver. I got a lot of flack from you guys in the media tent today for saying that Nelson Aguilar was in the conversation. I'll say Jacoby Myers is the best receiver on the Patriots. It's most of the time not particularly close. I think Aguilar brings another level of speed and a different dynamic, certainly, than a guy like Myers. But he was out there again today. Myers caught 4 passes in 11-on-11s for Mack. Obviously, the deep ball. That has been the most impressive trait, I would say, from Jacoby this summer, is he's been getting behind the defense more and being able to go and make strong catches at the catch point more consistently. He has got better hands and better contested catch ability than you expect. And you see all of those things, and this player is just really rounding out into a complete receiver. Jacoby Myers, the clear-cut best receiver on the team. He's the straw that stirs the drink.
Oh, hang on. They updated the Sony Michelle trade.
Yeah,
it's a little different now.
Oh.
So it's Sony Michelle for a 2022 6th and a 2023 4th.
Interesting. So the trade,
there goes that whole thing about moving up the comp pick, but it's still not bad. So I'm
the
not
return's
as excited
not
about
terrible, but at least they got something. Now let's give your Jacoby Myers take.
Yeah, no, I thought I wanted to throw that out there. Jacoby was really good today. He continues to grow. It's been incredible. He's just rounding out as a wide receiver. And yeah, I think, if there's a 100 catch guy on this team, it's going to be him. I don't know if that's an incredibly hot take or not, but him and Mack specifically, there seems to be something there. Mack and Myers, I guess is what we'll call it. But they've been good together.
Sounds like a law firm.
It does, no, but they've been good. And I thought, we knew Myers, like coming in, Myers was kind of a shifty receiver. That was always his go-to, but we're seeing now he can win in other ways. Again, that catch in the back of the end zone, he wasn't making that catch last year. That is the catch, that is a true wide receiver catch. Again, he's only been a wide receiver for about 5 years. So he's starting to, really become a well-rounded wide receiver, which is interesting.
I didn't expect him to have the jump ball skills that he's shown this year and the contested catch skills down the field that he's shown this summer so far. He's always had strong hands coming over the middle and fighting through contact over the middle, but not necessarily on a vertical route, right? Where he's looking. You would expect that out of N'Keal Harry, right? To be able to go down the field like that and catch a ball in between two guys. Sounds like a play that maybe a 6'3" wide receiver like N'Keal Harry could make. Myers has been able to do that in camp consistently. It's been very, very impressive. Who's the other offensive player you wanted to mention?
Yodny Kajus.
Yodny.
Another good day. Yeah. Perhaps his best day so far.
Getting reps at left tackle, Isaiah Wynn left practice early. It was not Justin Herron who stepped in at left tackle, as I would say Herron has mostly been the top backup to Isaiah Wynn or Trent Brown when one of those guys needs a blow or something like that. It's been a lot of Herron. Today, Isaiah Wynn leaves practice early. We don't know yet why he left practice early. In comes Yodny Kajus. So the Patriots obviously like what they've seen from Yodny Kajus so far. We've liked what we've seen from Yodny Kajus so far. I wrote it today. It feels like Yodny Kajus is on the team, right?
Oh, yeah.
At this point, it would be a surprise to me if he doesn't make the 53-man roster.
I would say so too. Again, we've talked about there's 7 set offensive linemen. They're going to want to keep 8 or 9. He was the backup left tackle today. Backup left tackle is making the team. And Justin Herron, he didn't have a great day. So, no, Yodny Kajus is to the moon right now.
I agree. How about your boy Gunner? You liking what you're seeing out of Gunner? Because not such a good day yesterday. He targeted twice on interceptions. Today he made some good plays, especially late in practice.
Yeah, it's helpful. They're going to need him to play some wide receiver early, assuming N'Keal Harry can't play week 1, and that seems to be the understanding right now, at least openly the understanding right now. So
right.
If that's the case, are they going to keep another receiver in the interim? I don't know if they have room to do that. Maybe it's Christian Wilkerson. He still really hasn't had that cap day he needs, I think, to make the team. But if they're not going to keep an extra wide receiver, then you're looking at Gunner as that 4th guy, at least for the first handful of weeks, however long N'Keal Harry's out. So it's been better. He had, it's 2-1 right now. I thought he had a really good day Monday. Yesterday took a step back. I thought today was much better. So we'll see. But yeah, they're going to have to figure out what they want to do with that other receiver spot.
More separation at the top of the route from Gunner than what we've seen in the past couple of years, his first couple of years in the NFL. Certainly those abilities to run those little option routes on the inside. I put a play up yesterday of Mack Jones from the Eagles once I finally watched the coach's tape of Gunner running the option series, right? Getting number 3 inside against the inside backer and him just running a leverage route. He was able to run across a defender today and score a touchdown from Mack in a low red zone situation again. So you're seeing more separation skills at the top of the route from Gunner, that inside ability as a slot receiver to win at the top of the route with quickness and just go off leverage. And Mack is very good at those types of throws. So a little bit of a push here from Gunner, I would say, as a wide receiver. Definitely not going to be an outside guy, not going to be somebody that's going to be a 1-for-1 swap for N'Keal Harry, but he can do some of the things that they like their inside guys to do, right? He's getting closer to Edelman, Amendola-ish, right? He's not going to be those types of guys. I don't think he's going to get all the way there, but we're taking a baby step closer towards him actually being that type of player.
Yeah, and again, I don't know that they need him to go out there and play 50% of their offensive snaps. It's like 10 to 15%. You're going to throw him the ball maybe 3 to 4 times a game, and that's without N'Keal Harry. And, if he can get you over the first 4 games, 10, 15 catches, I think that's really all you need for him. And yeah, it's kind of trending more in that way where it seems like he could fit in that role because, again, you're not cutting him. He's going to make the team as a punt returner. But if he can give you a little something on offense, especially while N'Keal Harry's out, saves your roster spot elsewhere. That's an extra offensive lineman. Maybe that's, somebody in addition to Yodny Kajus. Maybe it's somebody extra on the defensive line, what have you. So
the last thing I wanted to mention from practice today, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's definitely not a bad thing. I don't know how much to make of it is a better way to put it, but Juwan Williams is targeted very little in these practices. They don't throw at him a ton. And you have J.C. Jackson on the other side, so you would expect them to throw at him more. And Juwan, we don't have the tape, like I said, so I can't go back and watch and see, is Juwan getting beat and the quarterback just isn't finding the receiver, or maybe he's covering the guy that's the second or the third read in the progression and the quarterback is throwing to the first read all the time. All these different factors at play here with this. But you don't see Juwan Williams out there getting exposed, Alex. You don't see yourself calling his name all the time and saying, oh, there's Juwan Williams burned again, right? And that has to count for something.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. Cornerbacks and offensive linemen, sometimes when you don't hear their names, right, that's a good thing. Just means they're taking care of business and they're out of focus. And I think that's been the case with Juwan Williams. Stephon Gilmore's still the great unknown. And I don't know that Williams has played well enough where, okay, he's going to line up opposite J.C. Jackson come week 1 if Gilmore can't go. But yeah, I think he's comfortably played himself into that third role, that Jason McCourty role. I don't know that he's going to play it as well as Jason McCourty, but I don't know that it's impossible for him to start the season there.
Me neither. It's going to be a fun day tomorrow out at Patriots training camp. Day 2 of joint practices. Just got word that Mack Jones is going to speak after practice. Doesn't sound like Cam Newton is going to speak, which probably isn't much of a surprise. But Mack Jones is going to talk. It alluded to Cam is going to practice. He's just not going to speak with the media about the situation that just transpired. But what are you looking for? And you can talk about the quarterbacks here too, because why not? It's the number one topic. But what are you looking for tomorrow, Alex? Because to me, again, it's like what I said earlier after the end of the discussion about Mac. Can he keep stacking it together, right? Can he have another good day tomorrow against the Giants?
Yeah, I don't see why he can't, right? Well, I mean, according to you, their defense has no clue what they're doing and never will. But
wow.
No, I think he can. I think almost more important than Jones' performance, assuming I don't know that he needs to have the same high level performance, but again, assuming he's still at a high level, I think how they split the reps is as important as the reps themselves. You know,
right.
I think, right. If Matt comes out and takes all the reps again with Cam there, he's the starting quarterback.
Right.
That's, even if he takes the first reps, he's the starting quarterback. So let's see, there's that report from Mike Giardi that the Patriots were internally frustrated with Newton's situation. And he didn't say exactly what that meant, but let's just see how much this set Cam back. There was no way to know until he returned to practice truly how much this sets him back. Assuming he comes back tomorrow, like you said, it sounds like that's the plan. We'll really find out. And the other thing is, if he comes out and he takes all the reps tomorrow, then we know there's no shot Mack Jones is starting week.
Right.
We know there's no shot, because if Mack Jones has that performance and that can't get him over the top, especially if Cam Newton's so tomorrow, then Cam's the guy week 1. And then we know that, and that's just the reality. And I do think they're going to name the starter soon. I don't think before the Giants game, but roster cuts are on Tuesday. I would guess Wednesday or Thursday. I think it's going to be relatively soon, because most of these teams are starting to name their starting quarterbacks.
Yeah, pour one out for your boy Drew Lock, Alex.
He'll be back.
He'll be. Nobody has loyalty to anybody like Alex has loyalty to Drew Lock. A few quick questions here in the chat I just wanted to hit on for the people out there. Stephon Gilmore's name coming up a bunch. We've talked a lot about Gilmore's situation. This is a hold in. This is what a holdout looks like in the NFL nowadays, because there are the league has made it difficult to hold out completely because of the fines that they put on these players for not reporting to the team. So as much as Stephon Gilmore is rehabbing an injury, if he gets paid what he wants to get paid, that injury can disappear very quickly.
Right. And again, I said that, was it Monday or Tuesday that Bill spoke about it and said that he was day to day, and it was the most informed answer we've gotten on Gilmore since the spring. And that to me is encouraging. I think if things hadn't changed, Bill's answer wouldn't change. Yet it was a different answer on Gilmore than we've previously gotten. So I don't know what that means, like exactly. I don't know if that means he'll be back for week 1. I don't know if that means he'll be back tomorrow, whatever. But I can't help but look at that as some sort of positive sign in some direction. I don't know how positive, but feels like we're getting closer. So
I can't say that Christian Barmore stood out to me specifically in 11-on-11 drills, but he was absolutely handing it to the Giants interior offensive linemen in 1-on-1s and 2-on-2s today early in practice. He whooped one of the Giants offensive linemen. I wasn't able to see the number just through all the different bodies and everything that was standing over there, but he whooped somebody on an inside counter move, went right around him and through to where the quarterback would have been standing. So Barmore as a pass rusher looks legit, like everything that they drafted him for.
So I want to tag this on to what I'm looking for tomorrow too, because this reminded me of something with, Barmore didn't really stand out. We didn't see it. It felt like we didn't see a ton of the Patriots defense today. And maybe that's just because Mack Jones was playing so well. I couldn't find any numbers on the Giants quarterbacks. I guess their media doesn't keep that, but it really felt like the Patriots offense was on the field more today, like significantly more. So I wonder, was the agreement between Bill and Joe Judge, all right, we're going to be offensive heavy on Wednesday, and they're going to run through the same practice, but you're going to be offensive heavy on Thursday. And if that's the case, I go back to the numbers with the quarterbacks. That's less time for Cam Newton because the offense isn't going to be on the field as much. So that, I wonder what that's going to look like as well.
I would really appreciate that because it makes it easier for us to evaluate practice when we don't have to be looking everywhere all the time.
Well, look, as long as it's just one, if they want to do another Patriots offensive heavy day, I'll take that too. But as long as it's just one at a time.
Right. For people that haven't been to these joint practices, there are periods, especially early on in practice, where the offense and defense of the respective teams are working on one field and the offense and defense of the respective teams are working on another simultaneously. So that makes it very difficult as just one person with two eyes to watch everything. So if the Patriots and Giants want to stagger it each day, and I do think there's an element that is difficult even for the coaching staff to a degree to see everything, right? But they have the luxury of watching the tape back, so that's the difference. So we're going to be back out there on Thursday. Alex and I are going to do the show tomorrow night to discuss what we saw on day 2 of joint practices. As I just mentioned, Mack Jones and Brian Hoyer are scheduled to speak after practice. Cam Newton is not supposed to speak after practice, although he is expected to be at practice. So we're going to break down what we see, the reps, the discrepancies. Does Mack move the needle at all after a strong day today? Again, another good day for Jones against the Giants on day 1. And Alex and I will be back on the show tomorrow night to break down day 2. So thanks so much for watching. For Alex Barth, I'm Evan Lazar. Thanks for watching, everybody.